Ascent Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Matthew, and I'm back with another Scent Spotlight. I'm really excited that I had the chance to talk with the animator Bryan Brinkman, whom I'm sure you've all seen on Scent and SuperRare. We spoke about Bryan's crazy creative journey, starting out professionally working for an NYC ad company before moving on to HBO, MTV, and most recently working on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and Saturday Night Live. We also talk about art, value, and perception, what it's been like writing on Scent and sharing his process, at the future of rare digital art, and we get into the weeds on SuperRare, like what are some strategies for effective auction processes. And along the way, we shouted out folks like Josie, SuperRare, Nifty Gateway, Async.Art, Kane, and several others. Really excited to share this with all of you. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Bryan Brinkman. Okay, we're live. This is Matthew, and I'm back with another Ascent Spotlight with an amazing creator. I'm really, really excited to be able to speak with Bryan Brinkman, aka Brinkman, on Scent today. So welcome to the show, Bryan.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I appreciate being on.
Cool. And then the first question I have for you is the question I ask everyone, but could you introduce yourself and tell the Scent audience a little bit about who you are and what you've done in life up until this point?
Well, I'm Bryan. Let's see. I'm an artist. I'm an animator. I'm a designer. And in general, I just enjoy technology and creating art in different forms and different ways. And I'm fairly new to the crypto art world. Starting at about the beginning of this year, I started really jumping in. But before that, I've been a part of the television, animation, advertising industries for about 15 years. And I have a background in traditional animation and web design and filmmaking and all that kind of stuff.
Coming across your profile on Scent, it looks like you have such a deep, rich, varied background. I'm curious to hear like your creative journey, like maybe starting when you were younger. Like it seems like you sort of had a lifelong passion for at least drawing, animating, and that sort of thing. So if you could walk us through that journey, I'm super interested to hear that personally.
For sure. So I would say my life turned strictly towards art and around high school. Before that, I was taking art lessons and stuff like that, but I had kind of thought I would get into a graphic design career. But somewhere around middle of high school, I started getting into animation. I started using a software called Adobe Live Motion, which is kind of like an early version of After Effects. And I started making web cartoons for like newgrounds.com. And so I'd start posting these little short animations. I started seeing comments, encouragement, and negative comments as well. But that feeling of being seen and sharing my work got me hooked. And so when I got time to kind of decide my career, I ended up going into animation because someone gave me the advice. Because originally I was like, I want to be, a Tim Burton and make films. And Tim Burton was an animator. And if you learn animation, you learn not just how to draw and make a short film in that style. You actually learn the entire process of making a film. And you can do whatever you want because you learn additional steps. And so I really enjoyed that idea of having the ability to tackle every step of the production if I wanted to, whether it's the writing, the storyboarding, the concepting, the editing. I just enjoyed having that kind of freedom to not have to collaborate on a big film set with tons of people. I could just make my own stories on my own. And so that kind of drew me in. And so I ended up going to college in Philadelphia at a place called the University of the Arts, where I studied traditional animation.
I'm from outside of Philadelphia, randomly.
Oh, fantastic. And so it was a wonderful school, but they didn't focus as much on traditional like cartoons as experimental animation and like how to use mixed media to tell stories, which you can kind of see in the work I do now, where I like to combine hand drawn stuff with 3D stuff with realistic textures. And so I kind of enjoy that mashup of styles to create a more rich look. And so that's kind of a big takeaway I got from there. After I got out of school, I moved to New York City and I started looking for work, which, the animation industry is fairly tough. So my first job out of school, I worked for an advertising agency and I was kind of doing motion graphics and editing and doing their website and like flash presentations and things like that. And so I got a more well-rounded jack of all trades role, which kind of helped me hop around after that to different places. So for instance, after that, I went out to LA and I worked on an HBO cartoon called The Life and Times of Tim, which was done in Photoshop and After Effects. And then after that, I came back to New York and I worked at an advertising place that did toy commercials for like Hasbro. And so I got to make like kind of cartoony commercial graphics, which were fun. And then after that, I bounced around to like MTV, where I worked on a show called Guy Code and Girl Code, where there's comedians and you hear their jokes and you get to kind of form little animations out of their dialogue. And so that was all kind of like airline manual style. And then from there, I went on to work at my current job, which is The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon and Saturday Night Live. And so I kind of do motion graphics and animation and design for those as a part of a team of talented artists. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. And so I've kind of taken that whole career of different styles and work, and I found about SuperRare through an artist I admire called Killer Acid. And I saw he was posting this stuff on this website, and I was like, what is this thing? This is so interesting. Is this a community? What is it? The more I looked into it, the more I thought it was really cool, and I thought the art that was on it was really interesting. And so I was like, all right, I want to be a part of this. And so I applied and got accepted. And then since then, I've just been kind of having fun making whatever I want. As I was doing all these other work jobs, I've also been a part of this gallery scene in LA of pop culture artwork. And so mostly through a gallery called Gallery 1988. And so what they basically do is they go, hey, we have a show and it's going to be about this movie or movies from this year, and make a piece. And so that's been a fun way of like having some sort of box to work within and then make a piece, versus what SuperRare is, where I can just kind of make whatever I want outside of any boundaries, which is, so it's kind of a yin and yang to the creative process in that sense.
Well, that's a proper journey that you've been on up until this point. And it's just so cool to discover someone like yourself who has gone through all those experiences. I mean, I first came across you on Scent when you introduced yourself back in February. And I've been someone that's been using SuperRare for quite a while and avid collector. So when I saw your work there, I was, oh, wow, you're on both places. This is awesome. On top of that, like, you really have taken the time to take the viewer, take the collectors that are on both places behind the making of your pieces, which I find that just to be like the best, to be able to see like what goes into it. Because as someone who is like, with my hands, I cannot make anything. So I'm always in awe of folks like yourself who are just so talented. And you sort of alluded to your style before, what you're doing on SuperRare, at least in particular, where you're combining like this hand drawn, gritty but poppy images with like these 3D animations and textures. I think that's really cool. And then as I was digging a little bit deeper into some of your work, and then coming back to the work that you've shared on SuperRare, I kind of noticed like I don't know if this is intentional or not. This just may be a function of my childhood reading a ton of Far Side by Gary Larson.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But something kind of reminds me of that, mixed with maybe a little bit of like Roald Dahl style, like, I don't know, like, absurd, childish, but like very playful and welcoming drawing. Like, it's great. I love what you're doing.
Well, thanks. Yeah. No, I love Gary Larson's work, and I think he has such an irreverent style that when I looked at SuperRare and I looked at kind of the breadth of the work, I kind of thought, where can I put myself in this that stands out? And, in terms of medium, I think I have some space in that way. And I also think that a lot of the work I see on SuperRare tends to be a little more muted, a little more textural and destroyed and glitchy, which I like that stuff. But I kind of tried to steer my stuff in more of a cleaner, colorful world to kind of stand out. And I really appreciated that. And like you were talking with scent, the reason I kind of gravitated towards that was I first saw that a lot of the other artists and collectors were using it. And then I also kind of looked back at what I've used in the past to share my art. And a lot of those things have kind of came and went, and they didn't really have a place. I used to use Tumblr, but that's kind of fallen to the wayside. I used to use my own website as a blog, but that kind of all falls to the wayside. And so I really enjoyed the fact that kind of Scent was grounded in this community. And also it allowed me to, like you said, talk about my process in a way that's more personal and open about what I was thinking, how I went about it. Because in the end, it's like this whole community, I'm just absorbing everybody's work and thinking of ideas and where's this come from? How did I get to here from here? And a lot of times the way I approach these pieces is I go, well, I want to figure out how to do this problem, how to solve it. And so it's like, I want to build a 3D scene. So how am I going to do that? And I kind of build it, and then I kind of figure out where it goes. And sometimes I have a plan from the start, and sometimes it kind of forms into its own thing during the process. And it's hard to kind of just describe that in like a one-word thesis on SuperRare. So I really saw the opportunity with Scent to kind of break down and show how I got from A to B, because I always enjoy seeing that. And so I'm glad you appreciate it.
Oh, for sure. And having these conversations with creators, it's really eye-opening to see the types of creators such as yourself, like, for example, spherical art. They approach their individual projects very similarly. They have a problem that they kind of want to figure out how to solve, and the work sometimes stems from there, results from there, or they have an idea and then they kind of just try to enact that with the tools and the experimentation. The results, I think, are very interesting. They are usually more different piece to piece than other creators that have like hyper defined style. But I know that your colors seem to hold a lot of your work together. And then the lines, and you mentioned like the hand drawn elements with more 3D elements. Like there's those other parts of your work that hold it together. And I think really make each piece part of a more cohesive whole, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's been certainly a conscious effort in terms of, I want to, because going back to my pre-crypto art gallery work, I was given advice early on that galleries want an artist that's going to make the same thing every time, so they know what they're going to get, which I've always found creatively to be a little bit against the grain. Because I want to, and so I think in my first Scent article I posted about, or one of my early ones about, my goal with this project is to try and push each piece to new areas while still having it kind of glued together. And definitely the colors have been a big part of keeping that consistency. just between the 12 pieces I've made so far, there's definitely elements that tie into each one, whether it's diamonds or ladders or just the overall sizing and shape of things. But it's all evolving. And like, I think maybe my 7th piece or 6th piece, I was told about this mural device that people have that is like an HD screen that can play these images and GIFs and stuff. And so when I saw that, I was like, well, maybe I should be making things for that ratio so that they can be displayed better. And so I find like maybe half of my pieces since then have been this like tall HD size. So a lot of it's kind of evolving based on what I see. And that's kind of the fun of not just the SuperRare world, but the crypto art world and the crypto voxels and all these different ways of displaying the art are kind of forming different ways of creating it.
Yeah, totally. Just the experimentation around, well, now that I'm in a virtual world and there's really no size limitations, I can make this piece look really great at 100 feet tall, right? There's nothing holding you back. I feel like that is so freeing, and it allows just so much more creative expression that way. And well, sticking on the crypto art scene, I kind of love how you found your way to crypto art because of Killer Acid. Like I know as an artist that you appreciate it. Just cool that his name happens to be Killer Acid.
Yeah, no, I mean he's an artist I've appreciated from the New York art scene, and I've purchased prints of his in the past. And as just a physical artist, I appreciated his work, and then to see that he was kind of diving into this new area. I know I'm a bit behind the curve in the crypto art world, but I was like, oh wow, this is really neat. This is something I think I could get into because for various reasons, there's more of a direct relationship between me and whoever ends up getting the pieces than if I sell a piece in a gallery, where most of the time when I sell a piece in a gallery, I have no idea where it goes because it's up to the buyer whether they reach out and tell me they purchased it. And so it's nice to kind of be able to see where a piece can go. And I've already seen some of my pieces have like secondary bids on them, or they're trying to resell them. And that's such an exciting way to look at art, in that you can trace it around.
As a collector, it's one of the most exciting parts about this, is that you have that forever connection because of your purchase to that originating minting address that the creator used. And the creator has, I'm sure there's better tools that need to be developed, like address books and things like that, so we can better track this stuff. And for collectors too, to see like who are fellow holders of like Brinkman works, right? That's something that is now like trivially easy to kind of like figure out. And then the experiences that can be built on top of that are just like sort of next level mind blowing. Like I know a few artists that are really giving that collector experience a really deep, thoughtful review. Like Matt Kane is an artist I've spoken with who has created a whole website specifically for his collectors to join. And then as long as they have the wallet that holds the work that they collected of his, they're able to gain access to exclusive experiences with,
oh, wow.
with because of that, right?
I've seen his work, but I didn't realize he had this other layer to it, which is really cool.
Yeah, he is incredibly deep thinker and amazing creator. Other creators are using that kind of direct connection through the Ethereum addresses to create wearables that are reminiscent or like almost direct copies or replicas of the work that the collector collected, so that the collector can kind of wear that association to that artist in the virtual worlds as they're going around. Like,
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I would never say that you're late to the scene. It's just getting started, right?
Yeah, no, I've seen some artists like I think Josie. They have a Discord set up that's just based on her art, And that was one of the early things I saw where I was like, okay, this is another step in that direction. And I've seen recently, there's different, it's like social currencies that you can invest in, which kind of give you more access to the artist, which is almost like a Patreon for crypto, where you can give people additional social currencies to buy exclusive things. But I haven't had a chance to really dive that deep into it.
that the social currencies are an even deeper rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to hear that, at least through that physical connection of meeting Killer Acid and purchasing his works, having that sort of relationship established, following him, I guess, and figuring out that he was on SuperRare. That's awesome. Just because you guys seem to have been like physically close together, geographically close together, which is awesome because until now, everyone has just been all over the world. For the longest time, no one in my close circle of friends had any idea about crypto art, never wanted to hear about it, would want me to shut up if I ever start talking about it. So I'm curious, like in your own circle, because it seems like you travel in way more creative circles, what is the reception to the fact that you're participating in crypto art been? Like, do people know about it? Is it still like a little secret? I'm curious about that.
I think a lot of people are becoming interested in it. A lot of people, myself included, it takes a while to kind of fully wrap your mind around it. But in terms of, art and value, I think I've always been under the understanding that art and value and perception are always linked. What makes it into a museum and has value is just based on perceived value. But I think I've definitely shown it to a lot of other artists in the community, and they've gotten excited and they were like, oh, I could get into this. And then I think SuperRare has this not a wall, but you have to submit a video of yourself talking and explaining your art. And I think a lot of artists are self-conscious and get freaked out by that aspect.
Yeah.
It's a weird hurdle, but I understand the reason, because they want to make sure that the artist is really the artist. And I think that's definitely important. But I also find that a lot of friends of mine that I think would be excellent crypto artists tend to get self-conscious because, I think that's a part of just being an artist, is this constant critiquing of yourself and your work. And I think it's just hard to get out of that space for a minute and get on camera. I know when I had to film my video, I did it in one take, and I was like, I'm not going to think about this too hard.
Well, totally. As someone who does podcasts and not like filmed YouTube recording podcasts, like I can totally sympathize with folks who don't want to record themselves. I have to imagine, I can already start to think of like better proof of humanity, like tests. Like, for example, there's a really decent number of creators and artists already on SuperRare. Like you mentioned, you already have people in your circle that you could probably recommend to get on and vouch for. It seems like having an established artist such as yourself now serving as that kind of like vouchsafe, like even if they don't want to do like that film recording of themselves, having you vouching for them, that should be enough for that proof of humanity, potentially. Hopefully something like that happens to kind of break open the lid on this thing, because I can definitely feel something bubbling, like a much broader base of artists that are starting to look with more interest to this space nowadays, which is awesome.
Definitely. And it seems like there's, with different platforms coming out and different other type of super rare places, like this Nifty Gateway, that's a new one. It seems like it's just going to keep expanding both the audience of collectors and creators.
And then there's plays like Async.Art that are just exploding people's minds, having the concept of layers.
That one took me like a week to fully understand, but now that I've seen a few examples, I'm like, okay. And now, the pieces that I've built for the physical art I create, which I hope to start making some scent articles about that stuff as well, because I have a whole different process there where I build these 3D shadow boxes in the style of cell animations. And so I approach all my pieces on a layered basis already. And so that async stuff appeals to me, but I just haven't had an epiphany yet, I guess, of what I could do. And then, it's kind of the same way when I applied to SuperRare. I didn't want to just jump in. I tried to make like 4 or 5 pieces I thought would work. And so that I had a plan, but at the same time, as soon as I got in, I kind of threw 4 of the 5 out the window and I started over because, I just want to see how it progresses and then see what inspires me. And it's an interesting avenue to take. And I see people like the top creators working with async and all these other things, and they're doing amazing stuff. And I feel like they all have much more of a plan in place. So I don't want to jump in without a plan.
Yeah. But like you mentioned, like folks that are familiar with working like with vectors and stuff, it's sort of basically that, except just making each vector its own like token. But even looking at some of your previous pieces, like thumbs up, like as a very simple implementation would be to have each of those thumbs ups have their own, like, be able to change colors for the different layer token owners and the backgrounds, and changing color for the person. Like, but then the application is not actually just restricted to art, which is, I hadn't considered this until, again, talking to Matt Kane. He was talking about the application of that sort of layer token approach within a masterpiece, taking it out to like film. Like you mentioned, there's all these different people that are on film sets. There's like gaffers, there's people that are working choreography, background, blah, blah. Like everyone has their own role to play. Kind of assigning each of those roles like a layer token, first of all, just to facilitate payments is interesting. But then sort of like the director cuts that we were familiar with, like when people use DVDs for like 2 seconds, having like these alternate endings, like it would be possible to have.
That is true. You could film a scene from multiple angles and then allow the viewer to make the edit points to which camera angle.
Exactly. As one other like non-crypto art application of that.
Yeah. I haven't seen async as animation yet. Do you know if that supports animation?
When you say animation, what do you mean?
What I've seen so far, it all seems to be still imagery broken into layers. But I haven't seen if they support each layer being an animated GIF. I'm sure they can, but I just haven't seen that approach yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I'm sure it should be coming. I'm just guessing it's way more work on the end of the creator, obviously.
It's all kind of evolving so fast. Like it's only been a couple weeks now since they've started supporting video on SuperRare, and it's something I've definitely looked into, but I haven't found a reason yet. I feel like if I do video, I have to have a sound component, and I haven't thought of a real reason that requires sound, because most of my stuff is just visual right now. But I do like the idea of expanding into the video sound world. And certainly the clarity is much bigger.
100%. And it's just crazy how quickly things are progressing and advancing. Like crypto time, it just feels so fast, and it feels like years have passed, and it's like, that's 2 months because of the amount of development that's happened, or people that have joined, work that's been going on, events that have gone on. But sort of sticking on the point of like how digital art and crypto art specifically are kind of changing behavior, getting people to engage in art when maybe they wouldn't have, or convincing people to maybe share collections of art that previously may have been kind of like verboten or like socially awkward. I was struck by what you had written in the making of your cloak piece, that kind of tension that exists of showing collections of art specifically, because that's traditionally been associated with people flaunting their wealth, right? But now that everyone's crypto wallets are like publicly available and you can see what everyone's collecting. And the whole point of CryptoVoxels for a while was to show off your collections, your art and these virtual galleries. I'm just curious, like if you could elaborate on what you see the future of like digital art kind of permissioning or enabling or changing when it comes to socially accepted behaviors and norms and expectations.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a good question. To build on what you were talking about, I was mentioning the cloak piece because it was about hiding the wealth under the art, and not just in terms of flaunting your wealth, but also the idea behind it was that this kind of embarrassment of riches, which you see, because I work across the street from Christie's auction house. And so I walk in there and you can look at all this art and you can see a price tag on it. And you go, oh, this Jeff Koons piece is $1 million. And I think it's not just a matter of flaunting your wealth, but also hiding your wealth and value. And so it's a lot of that world parallels the crypto world in certain ways, in terms of you want to invest your money in something that you believe in, and investing in it also adds to its value. And so I'm not sure exactly the future of the digital art world and where it could go, but I definitely think in terms of perceived value, what people are willing to put into the world will grow and hopefully continue to build a wealth of art and value. But I'm just as confused about it as anyone else in terms of where it could go from here. I think the ability to show off the work is certainly key, but then also figuring out ways to broaden it outside of the digital world. So when I talked about that mural device that can show your piece in your house, or getting physical art galleries to start displaying crypto art pieces, I think that's going to be where the digital art world and the crypto art world can start to gain traction in the bigger art community outside of it. Start bringing in bigger people, and you see these websites like Nifty Gateway working with artists that are sold in Christie's. And so I think that's a big part of it. I think figuring out ways of selling physical pieces that also include NFT tokens is another way of diversifying art purchases so that you can have the best of both worlds. But I'm not sure of the future. I'm still trying to catch up to the past.
I feel that. And then, well, I'm curious, since you joined SuperRare, I know people have been collecting you. Have you been collecting anyone else that you've come across on SuperRare?
Only recently. I saw, I think it was Sarah Zucker. She does wonderful video pieces, but her and a couple other artists, I think Rhyolite, they were talking about when they sell a piece, they buy a piece. And I like that idea. And so I'm gonna start trying to do that more. But I haven't dove in too much. I've bought one piece so far because I really liked the illustration style on it. But I don't know if I'm not a shark or a whale, you know. But I can't go after the established ones. But I do enjoy looking at the pieces, and I would like to start building that up, but I imagine I will be more on the creation side than the collecting side, because the collecting side seems to be much more difficult to maneuver in terms of figuring out, keeping up with people that are really in the know. And it's a wonderful community. That's the thing that helped me a lot early on, because I felt very overwhelmed and confused after I posted my first or second piece. And I was like, am I doing this right? Are people liking this or not? And I found that joining the Discord and talking to the collectors and artists has been super helpful, because, I'm making tons of mistakes off, and things I don't know, protocols that aren't necessarily set in stone, but are the norm. And that kind of stuff I didn't necessarily understand right off the bat, even though SuperRare does a great job of giving you some wonderful guides. That kind of stuff fluctuates. So from time to time, and, I was starting out trying to do 48-hour bidding windows, and then I was told, that's too long. And it's like, okay. And then people were like, you should be promoting the pieces before you launch them, which I hadn't been doing. I had just been kind of dropping them and saying, okay, here it is. And so now I'm trying to get better at promoting it ahead of time. And so that kind of advice has been really helpful coming from the community.
Yeah, it's always incredible to see the members of the community help shepherd along and kind of institute these new accepted norms and practices. And it's awesome to see the different experiments, because some people have, like, even if they have this 24-hour bid window, they have like an automatic reset if they receive any bid within that window. Whereas some people have like a hard countdown where it's like, okay, at like 12 a.m. Eastern, if no one purchases this, it's the final bid gets it. So you have some sorts of like really fun last second bids and setting super high gas rates to kind of get in at the last minute. I mean, it's all just a work in progress, as I see it.
For sure. And, I've seen a lot of people like to use reserves, which I understand, but I've kind of avoided that for the most part, just because I, want to let the market kind of decide where my value is at before I start trying to raise it or set a bar. But at this, I don't want to also, overstep, So I just kind of, and I think sometimes the reserves can stop smaller collectors from getting in on the action.
It's a fine line, because if you're new to the space, I mean, do you want just one or two or three people collecting your work only? Do you want to have a broader base of collectors? And then everyone has different answers to that. Depending on the answer, I mean, that dictates those decisions. So I think just talking about this and having other people in the space that are probably thinking the same thing, having the same questions, having them hear this, I have to think that has to be helpful to let them know that they're not thinking that by themselves.
No, I certainly appreciate the bigger collectors that have been nice enough to buy multiple pieces of mine. But at the same time, I appreciate having my pieces be more diversified amongst a bunch of collections, because then they might get more widely seen or shared or be put into different crypto voxel areas, or so that kind of thing. It's a weird balance. I appreciate both of them equally, but it is nice to have a little bit of both. For sure.
And then, well, I want to be respectful of your time. So I think the last question I want to ask you is just a future forward-looking question. So in the next coming months, which is in crypto time, like years, I'm just curious, like, what are your future plans? Do you have any particular programs that you want to start working with more? I know you mentioned mural creating for something like that, form factor as being something that you're interested in more now. Just curious to hear your future plans in terms of creating.
Well, right now I'm working on a piece that is a mix of 2D animation and Cinema 4D. And like I think I mentioned it earlier, I like to approach a piece as problem solving. And so the next piece I'm working with trying to understand how to do kind of like 3D physics ropes and stuff like that. And so that was kind of where I was like, I want to do a piece where something is hanging from a bunch of ropes and kind of swaying back and forth. And so I approached that. And so then I spent time learning how to do that. And then hopefully the piece will look cool, but also show another step forward in terms of learning. So I have my plans for the future. Last week I released a double release that kind of were sibling pieces that were kind of like warm and cool. And I found that to be kind of a fun artist statement kind of piece where there was this kind of bigger world of them. But I think my goal is to just keep pushing the technical aspects forward while also honing the aesthetics so that they keep feeling like better versions of the previous ones. But I think my goals are to keep making the pieces, but also to try and dive deeper into the other parts of the crypto world. I want to learn more about crypto voxels. I want to learn more about sandbox game. I want to learn about ways of showcasing the pieces in ways that expand the audience. And I think that's, making art is half the creative process and half the process of showing it to people. And I think it's got to be an equal balance of both ways. And so definitely using websites like Scent has been great for seeing all the cool things that people are making, whether it's new ways of minting or new ways of showing off the pieces in other creations. I think it's a great community overall. And I want to just kind of slowly dive into more of those weird trenches of the world and figure out what people are doing and how to connect with more people.
Awesome. Well, I'm super stoked to see your future creations, and hopefully I can help you on the separate front of kind of exploring some of the more adjacent worlds. Every week on Thursday, we hold a work in progress meetup over in CryptoVoxels. So I'm extending an open invitation to you whenever you want to talk about something you're working on. Come on the virtual stage and share it with everyone. And
awesome. Well, I'll probably come as an attendee first to see how it works, but yeah, I would love to.
Cool. Well, it was a pleasure to speak with you, Bryan. It was really awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, Matthew. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all the listeners. Have a good one.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Hey everyone, it's Matthew again, and I really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Bryan as much as I did recording it. As always, please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen. And if you have some friends whom you think would enjoy this sort of podcast, make sure you recommend it to them as well. In the next few weeks, I have spotlights coming up with The Sarah Show, as well as Paola, so please look out for that. If you have any requests, favors, or if you would like to hop on the show or whatever, feel free to reach out to me anytime on Scent at /Matthew or on Twitter at breadcrumbs, BREAD_KRUMBS. And with that, I'll let everyone enjoy their week, and I'll catch you later on at the Whip, and also when I drop my latest special interview along with Rizzle with Jimmy, where we talk about Infinite NFT, which I still can't pronounce. But anyway, it's an awesome project coming to you from the folks at NFT 42. Sent on.
Podcast.